Welcome to the Cover 2 with Phillip Jordan. Phillip and friends break down the latest news in professional football every week. So let's get this thing started and snap the football. Hut, hike.
Well, everybody, welcome into the Cover 2 NFL podcast. I am Phillip Jordan for Last Word on Sports and 96.9 The Legend in Dothan, Alabama, where I'm the in-studio host and producer of was football. This is the return of the Cover 2, my NFL podcast. And on today's show, we're going to talk NFL draft with John Vogel from Football Sapient. We will talk about just his passion for the NFL draft. We'll also get into his thoughts on Mac Jones going into year 2 next year. He was very high on Mac coming into the draft last year. So we'll talk about that. A player he has changed his mind on. Ask that question to John. And then we get into his latest mock draft over at footballsapient.com. We talk a lot about the quarterbacks and receivers, but we go through some of his mock draft. Then after that, I give my thoughts on the first weekend of the USFL. You can find the Cover 2 NFL podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. And you can check the show out on YouTube as well at Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. And you can always email me at sports.phillipjordan@gmail.com. Now, let's talk NFL draft with John Vogel. Whew. All right, everybody joining me on the show today, John Vogel. You check him out the Football Sapient NFL draft stuff. He's your guy. You want to know what's going on in the draft? You want honest, great NFL draft takes? Go check out Football Sapient. Hey, if you like the USFL, they've got USFL coverage going over there as well too. Football all the time. And John, I appreciate you doing this.
I appreciate you asking me to come back, man. It's awesome. I love every opportunity, man.
Oh yeah, man, and you're just like blowing up all over the place. I just want to say just congratulations on the past year and these last couple of months, growing with your website and yourself too as well. Just congratulations on all your success.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Oh, and let's just talk about where did that passion? I know big, obviously NFL draft. Where did that passion for that come from?
It came from watching ESPN and Mel Kiper and Todd McShay and, relying on their draft takes and stuff and then being wrong 50% of the time and realizing I had to watch it myself. That was quite an experience when I learned that's normal, and 50% is a good hit rate. But no, it's just it's really getting – the thing about scouting is you get really deep into football and you really get a chance to really assess talent and you understand football. You have to understand a lot of different levels. And I think the learning curve that comes with it is awesome because it never ends. There's always things changing. Schematics are changing. The way that we tell players to play positions are changing and staying plugged into all that.
You talk about with the NFL draft. You brought up Mel Kiper Jr., which I'm 35. So I know when I was growing up, it felt like then he was the only guy.
Yep.
Really much. It was just him. Now there's so many people, on the national level and just all over the place. But who was one of the NFL draft guys for you growing up that you looked up to and, really appreciated their work?
So people that kind of really taught me, would be Daniel Jeremiah at NFL Network, listening to Moving the Chains and with Bucky Brooks. I think I didn't really get into draft so much until I was later, and I really got into media and was kind of trying to figure out my niche. Mm-hmm. That's when I really got into that. But I think that team building is fascinating, so free agency and anything that involves, building a team has always been something that's really interesting to me. And the draft is like one of the main aspects of that. And that's kind of what happened was if you want to talk about how a team's constructed, you got to talk about the draft, and you have to understand what teams are looking for and how they assess the talent. So that's really how I got here.
Last time me and you talked, we talked about a certain quarterback I wanted to ask you about because I know you were big on him. And before we jump into this year's draft, I'm going to kind of reverse into last year. Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, I loved it.
I'm, a lot of my content's SEC. I mean, the handle P Jordan SEC. I know you were big on him going in. I was impressed with him during the season, and I'll forget your take. I give my thoughts, and something I don't think anybody ever talks about. But it was one moment in his rookie year. They were playing the Cowboys. He throws that pick six. Diggs takes it back. I was super impressed with him. The very next possession, he went right back at him. He wasn't afraid. So I said, okay, this guy's going to be a pro. He's going to last. Because just showed the fearlessness of that. Because there's a lot of quarterbacks I think would have not thrown it his direction that quickly, after he just took it to the house on you. But after 1 year with, seeing Matt Jones, what's your takeaways with him going forward?
Yeah, it's kind of like when I was talking to you. I don't know if I said it on your show, but it was something that I basically said a lot during the last draft process was don't let this guy go to the Patriots because he is Tom Brady 2.0. I mean, he's modeled his game after Tom Brady's entire life. That's his favorite player growing up. That's his idol. And a lot of the Brady and Jones game, I don't think Jones has quite the arm. It saw some limitations with that at times where, like he, especially on the deep ball, he really has to rely on timing and touch, not someone like Josh Allen who can just throw a dot, 40 yards into the end zone. We saw that a couple times throughout the year. But overall, I mean, he's just going to keep getting better. Timing, accuracy, and touch are all great things that he just has a natural feel for. And I mean, I think the Patriots have their quarterback situation figured out. And I would say for the next decade, it would probably be safe. I'm not going to say he's going to have a Brady type career, but I think that he's going to be a suitable starter for a very long time and probably be one of the top quarterbacks.
Oh, no. I remember his first preseason game. Mm-hmm. Just the way he took the ball from under center and he stepped back, I was like, you put a 12 on him, that looks just like Tom Brady.
Yeah, he does. It's unreal.
Just everything about him just was very similar. And I think I know the playoffs didn't go how they wanted, but it wasn't because of him. I think he played, actually, all things considered, in the blowout loss to Buffalo, he actually played considerably well, considering what was going on around him. Moving into this year's draft, 2022, just, overall, and we'll get into the quarterbacks, just I get this is maybe a curveball question to you, and if you don't have an answer top of your head, that's fine. Is there somebody going into this draft, or that was after the college season, or anything like that you weren't too high on that you've kind of changed your mind on going into the draft? Which is, we're recording this on Thursday, the 14th, which is 2 weeks away from the draft when we record this. Is there anybody that comes to mind with that? That's someone that's maybe you've changed on? So
it'd have to be Desmond Ridder. I like Desmond Ridder a lot more than I did coming into the process. It's really, I'm the type of guy with a quarterback where growth at quarterback position throughout your college career as a passer, and you have the athletic tools, to be something more than just, a passer. I'm normally willing to take that bet. So 2016, Dak Prescott, I love Dak. I thought I had a late first round grade on him. I thought he was going to be a great quarterback at the next level. I think I would have taken him over Jared Goff. Wouldn't have taken him number one, but I didn't think Goff was quite up there. 2020 was Jalen Hurts, right? And I love Jalen Hurts, and I loved his game, and I had a late first on him as well. The athletic ability and the ability to, you've shown the consistency with your growth as a passer over your career. I'm willing to take that bet. And Ridder, I had some questions about his mentality, his leadership, but as the college season progressed, as we really got into the pre-draft process, I really started to buy on him. I like him a lot. So we move into this year with the Lions, and reading your mock draft, I know you got there Aiden Hutchinson, which hometown guy there. They obviously will love him. But you talk about Jared Goff, he's their quarterback. But why do you think they should go there at defensive end and not go quarterback? Because you obviously know Jared Goff is not your future. He's kind of the placeholder. But why not quarterback at that spot? I honestly, we're going to get into Kenny Pickett because he's the next pick. I know you're going to mention that one.
Oh, yeah.
I really don't like quarterbacks. I don't think there's a real potential franchise-changing guy, that is going to step in and play immediately. So the question kind of becomes, is Jared Goff an upgrade right now? Is the guy that you're going to draft an upgrade over Jared Goff right now, or is he just another kind of average? Is he better than Jared Goff? And I don't think you have a guy in this class that's any better than him. So you're going to have to ride him for another year. I guess you could make a trade if you could figure out something with the cap. You're tied to Jared Goff for 20-something million this year. It's insane. So I think that's the best route that they have to take, is just to go ahead and continue to build up that defense. Now, Hutchinson makes a lot of sense there, not just because he's a hometown kid in Michigan, and they do reportedly love him a lot. He's not going to get past 2, I don't think, if he doesn't go number 1. But I think with him also is he kind of fits what they want to do. They had Romeo Aquara in that spot where Hutchinson would fit perfectly last year. Aquara got hurt. He looked okay. Hutchinson's an immediate upgrade. You can start him immediately. You might as well take that shot.
Okay, so you put a projected trade with Carolina and Houston at 3. Kenny Pickett, and I like Kenny Pickett watching him play. And obviously, Carolina's looking for a quarterback. I don't think they want to go into the season with Sam Darnold as their quarterback. That's pretty much been obvious with chasing after Deshaun Watson. And I mean, I think I've even seen some reports at one time maybe they were interested in maybe Baker Mayfield or Jimmy Garoppolo. So that they're looking for a quarterback. With Kenny Pickett, and of course I know before the combine, everybody's making a big deal of his hand size. I mean, I'm like, okay. And then when you get nitpicky around this time of year, anyways, with some of this stuff. And then also with him, I've seen a lot of people compare him to Mac Jones, like he could be this year's Mac Jones. He may not have the highest ceiling of some of the other quarterbacks, but the floor is not as bad, with him, maybe with some others. But he's a safe pick. What I've seen. What's your take on just Kenny Pickett overall, and would that be a good match in Carolina?
So Pickett, I think in this class he is the most like Mac Jones, which if you remember last year, the Panthers loved Mac Jones, and I think that was the original plan going into the draft was they were going to take him, but they had the opportunity to get a veteran in Darnold and try to resurrect his career, and it failed. So they're kind of back at square one. I projected the trade because you have teams like New Orleans and Atlanta right now kind of circling, and they're kind of in the same quarterback conundrum where they could use an upgrade. And so I think that you can blame them for sabotaging Deshaun Watson going to Carolina, because that sounded like that was pretty close to getting done. It didn't. Watson ends up going to Cleveland. Carolina is going to be dead set on making sure that nobody gets their guy. And that's what everybody's kind of saying about Pickett. I don't like Pickett as much as a lot of the people in the class. I was just, from everything that I hear about Carolina, they love him. They want him. I think he might be about the same as where Sam Darnold is right now. The hand size, that's a concern that a lot of people had. He wears 2 gloves when he plays, and that's because of the hands. But you didn't see a lot of issues with fumbles and stuff with him. So I don't think that's the concern. The concern is out of structure. So when you see him rolling out of the pocket and he makes these throws, especially in the red zone, he has like 5 or 6 touchdown throws that are really impressive, kind of almost across your body on a dime, 20 yards into the back of the end zone for a touchdown. He's really good at that. And that's kind of my concern is he's not as great in structure. It's almost like there has to be chaos for him to thrive. And that's my concern with Pickett is that he's not going to be as effective in structure. Same, but I think Carolina sees him as an upgrade.
Yeah, and of course he's going to figure something else out because he's not going to be able to whip out the fake slide. I mean,
yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to go on a tangent on that. I saw both sides of the argument. I thought it was super creative in the moment, but I also see the other side where you're the defensive player. What am I supposed to do here? Either way, you're in a tough spot. But I thought in the moment, I was like, oh, that's pretty smart to come up with that. But they kind of use the rules in your favor as a quarterback. But hey, those guys get enough advantages. They don't need to give them another one. But anyways, now talking about Atlanta, that was a team too. I've seen, some people mention should they go quarterback. Atlanta needs a lot. I mean, a quarterback's not going to solve, especially one of these quarterbacks is not going to cure what's going on with them. And I'm actually happy they traded Matt Ryan. He deserves to go somewhere else where he can actually win. It's not happening in Atlanta. You go with Garrett Wilson here. And I guess this question really isn't about why don't they go quarterback. Like I said, they need a lot of stuff in Atlanta. What's the difference in the 2 Ohio State receivers with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave?
Yeah, I think the main difference between the two is Garrett Wilson's better at the catch point. So he'll attack it. He's really good after the catch. I think Olave is more comfortable making a catch on the run. So that's why I like Wilson more than Olave is because Wilson really showed the contested catch ability, separation. He's got great speed. He's awesome after the catch. He's very much in that Devontae Smith type mold in terms of what he brings on the field, the way that he plays with the intensity, being able to make a lot happen after the catch, but going up and contesting the ball. I don't see a lot of that from Olave. Olave is going to be more of a smoother route runner, somebody that just kind of tries to run around and create that separation.
Next up, I'm just kind of going quarterbacks and receivers here, just looking how you had it, just kind of using it as a guide for the people wanting to know. And go check out John's mock draft over at footballsapient.com. It's really good stuff over there. You got Jameson Williams going to the Washington Commanders. Joke on the side. I'm bad about slipping up calling them the Commandos. I don't know why they keeps coming out that way. But it keeps happening. But anyways, with Jameson Williams, of course, coming off the injury, in the national championship game, do you see him as someone that even yourself would have had him higher if it wasn't for the injury? Or is this probably still where you probably would have had him?
I think he makes a really compelling argument against Garrett Wilson without that injury. The injury is it was very unfortunate. If you want to go back to the national game, they had to change a lot of what they were doing from an offensive schematic standpoint. But from everything that I've heard, he's still going very high. Like, people love this guy. His speed's game changing. He's got a very high ceiling because he's not really a finished product. Some of the things he needs to work on is really release and dealing with physicality throughout the route. But this guy's already there. He's a lot of fun to watch. He's got that, like we mentioned, like, you just can't say speed enough with him. He's awesome. Yeah. I think he would have run probably healthy enough to run. And it just makes sense because, when you look at Washington and they've got, Samuel got the 1 and the 3, and they need the 2, and Williams is perfect 2, in my opinion. So it just makes sense. You want to give Carson Wentz the weapons. You want to complement the speed that's across the board. He does all that.
Oh, another, and this is when I was a big fan of their year, just watching SEC like I do. Traylon Burks, what he did at Arkansas. One, he was hurt. And he's a guy. He is a big receiver, but he also brings you that speed factor. Yes. I mean, what's the biggest thing for you that sticks out with him? And then you see him. I know you got him going 18th with the Philadelphia Eagles.
So I've got him going 18. I think Philadelphia really likes him a lot, and everything that you've seen through the draft process points to that, including his pro day where the Philadelphia Eagles receivers coach worked him out, Joe Moorhead, I believe, and it's not Moorhead. I forget his name right now. The receivers coach worked him out during his pro day and worked him through receiver drills, and that's very rare. Like, you don't normally have NFL coaches working with players, and that's a pretty good tip on how they feel about him. So the lack of testing, right? So with him, he didn't hit a lot of the thresholds people expected him to with his 40-yard dash and his vertical jump and stuff like that at the combine. It wasn't as impressive as some of the other guys, but you put on the tape, this guy's a baller, right? In the clip that I put in the mock draft is him basically outrunning the entire Alabama secondary on a I think it was a curl. He runs up, catches it, takes off running, beats them across the field to the end zone, and he's hurt on this. He's playing hurt at this point. He's a game breaker.
Oh, okay. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this is where you had your next quarterback going, Malik Willis. Yeah. And of course, Mitchell Trubisky is not your franchise quarterback.
Right.
He is definition of a placeholder. I mean, at best. I mean, he's a guy you can put out there. With Malik Willis, and for me, as a guy that covers Auburn for last word on college football, I was really, proud, to see his development. Because I remember when, and getting away from Gus Malzahn was probably the best thing that happened to him as a quarterback, was getting away from Gus Malzahn. Because, look, I'll be honest with you, I think Jarrett Stidham turns out to be a much better quarterback if he's under a different coach in college. I've believed that. I mean, I've been also known as the Jarrett Stidham apologist over the years. But But anyways, with Malik Willis, with his development, I know, there's still some things he's got to fix. I mean, all these guys, obviously, there's nobody that's perfect. But with him, would you see him? Obviously, Steelers would probably ease him in if they drafted him. But just, why Pittsburgh? I know they're a big fan of him. How do you see him fitting in with them, and just, his overall development, where he needs to go next in the NFL when he gets drafted?
He looks a lot like the late Dwayne Haskins. More athletic, faster athlete, but same sort of talent, right? Like, Haskins had that big arm. He could stretch the field, wanted to kind of play tough and physical. That's Willis. Now, he's a little bit smaller than Haskins was, but it makes sense, that Pittsburgh really likes him. They kind of want to get into that more athletic type mold of a quarterback, and they've been wanting to do that, since Ben Roethlisberger kind of started thinking about retirement. That's been something like 2020 class. They love Jalen Hurts, and I think if he had been still sitting there in the second round when they picked it, they would have taken him there. So he was, but anyways, they loved Hurts through the process. So this is something that they've been planning on doing for a while. Now Willis needs to improve a lot of his passing fundamentals. That's the thing about him, is he's relied on his athleticism playing against a lot of less superior talent. He's an SEC talent, basically playing a bunch of nobodies in the playing. That's the other thing too. He's playing with a lot of nobodies. When people point to the Ole Miss game and they say, "Oh, he looked terrible," well, that's why. These are unranked offensive linemen for the most part that are blocking for him against 4 or 5-star prospects. So of course he's going to get torn up there. But really, it's just passing mechanics. He's shown some improvement over the process with that. He's been working with renowned quarterbacks coach. Why can't I think of his name right now? Avery. And
is it Quincy?
Quincy Avery. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Quincy Avery. He's been working with, you just know that that's one of those guys that's very athletic. You can bet on, he's shown some of the improvement as a passer. He's going to get there.
Now, okay. This is where I take the professional hat off a little bit, and I jump into the fan, because people out here probably know this. I'm a Packers fan. Mm-hmm. So you have Drake London going in from USC. Now, I'll ask you this. Does the Sammy Watkins acquisition change that, or do you think they still need to go wide receiver in the first round?
I think you still need a wide receiver. It's kind of like what I pointed out. Juwan Winfrey, Alan Lazard, and Randall Cobb are your projected starters. Now, throw Watkins in there a little bit. How long is Watkins actually going to be with the team?
Yeah,
I think he signed a 1-year deal. Are you going to extend him beyond that? Probably not. So the thing with London is, I think, honestly, picking Watts or draft or signing Watkins makes more sense with this, because London's coming off an injury, right? So he's you don't know if he's going to be 100% ready when the season starts. So you're not going to really be taking this guy, like when you draft this, if you were to draft this guy right here in this particular example, you're not taking him to fill in immediately. You're taking him because you're thinking long term. And that's kind of where Drake London is, I think. You're put on the boundary. You're hoping he becomes that one, and at worst, he's really just another, Chase Claypool type.
Yeah, I was just, I saw that after I had read after I saw the Watkins stuff, after I had read the mock draft, so it kind of just popped in my head with him. But yeah, I agree. I mean, they need all receiver that can help. And look, I think this will be the first time they've drafted a wide receiver in the first round since Javon Walker. Was he first round? It's been a long. They have not drafted a wide receiver in the first round since Aaron Rodgers has been the start quarterback. That was the Favre era when they did that. Finally at Tampa Bay, of course, Tom Brady's coming back. Okay, at first I was like, he's not playing for Tampa. He may coming back, but he's not playing for Tampa. I've come off that now. So you got Matt Corral coming, backing him up. And you're at 27. I like Matt Corral. What he can do, obviously, as a runner. Really good as a passer. I know a lot of people look at him as undersized a bit, but I like his game, what he's able to do. And I think with Lane Kiffin, he does run some stuff that's NFL light. So I think that kind of helped, just from while watching Ole Miss play with Lane Kiffin. I'm a Lane Kiffin fan anyway, so I'm going to talk him up as I can as a play caller. With Matt Corral, what do you see out of him? And that would be a big deal, kind of playing behind Tom Brady. You get to learn, from the best of all time. So that would be an intriguing spot for him.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking was, the Buccaneers have been in the whole quarterback trade rumor stuff with Baker Mayfield and, Garoppolo, and trying to find that long-term, solution, because let's be honest, he pretty kind of retired once, and then you had all these reports come out where supposedly he was about to go take over part ownership in Miami, and the Flores lawsuit threw all that into a whirlwind, but who knows if that's true or not. But the fact is, it looks like he's about to retire. He's taken this one last year. This is his last shot to go win something, and Tampa doesn't have a backup plan. And they're going to be competing to be playing, for the Super Bowl this year. So you're not going to try to wait till next year, because you're not going to tank when you got Tom Brady as your quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So it looks like if you have the opportunity, go ahead and there's a guy that you think could develop, that could take a redshirt year, you might as well go ahead and take him now, right? And that was kind of my thought process when I got to that point in the scenario. Because Matt Corral is a very talented quarterback. I like him. Like we talked about this last year. Mac Jones was my guy. He wasn't my top rated quarterback, but I liked him a lot more than the consensus, and he was one of my favorite guys. That's Matt Corral for me this year, right? And I liked him when I was watching him over the summer. He took that step up that you wanted to see. Goes and plays in the bowl game, so you have no, concerns about his lack of, love for the game or anything, because he's going to go play in a bowl game and gets himself hurt. But Matt Corral, he ran a lot of pro schemes. He has a good arm. He's very athletic. He's very tough. He doesn't like rich entitled kids, which I love that about him too. And so he just kind of fits that whole Brady mold, right? Outside of the size. I think Brady and him would get along great. He could learn a lot during that year, and then he could settle into a spot and, take over as their long-term starter and be and then Tampa's in a much more comfortable situation long-term with, Bowles as their head coach.
Yes, I guess the potential of the Kyle Trask era gets thrown out the window with that pick.
Was there ever a potential? That's the thing.
Yeah, he's a good story though. I mean, where he come from, just to make it to the NFL when you didn't really start in high school because you were behind Derek King.
Yeah.
Most kids now in high school, their parents would be taking them somewhere else. If that was the case. But anyways, man, I appreciate you coming on. This has been a lot of fun talking NFL draft with you. Tell the listeners and the viewers out there why they should be checking your stuff out and everything out over at Football Sapient.
We're anything we can, all leagues. And kind of ties into team building. That's kind of the idea behind the website is team building and focus, like I mentioned in the opener. And so they're gonna. Every alt league has produced players, to the NFL every year. I think when the AAF folded, there were 50 players that came over. The XFL had similar numbers. So there's going to be players coming out of the USFL that are going to get NFL chances, and we're covering that. The other thing is you got Fox pouring a whole lot of money into it, and NBC now too. So that there's going to be a lot of betting opportunities and fantasy sports, and we kind of want to be on top of that too. So we do that. We've got our NFL coverage, college football coverage this year we're kind of starting with, and you can follow us on Twitter at Football Sapient. I'm at Draft Vogel. And just anything general football stuff. That's what we're kind of talking about.
All right. Sounds good. Everybody go check out Football Sapient. Got you covered. All things football. And John, I do appreciate you coming on. It's good chatting with you again. And hope we can do this again sometime down the road.
Yes, sir.
All right. Once again, thanks to John for coming on this edition of the Cover 2 podcast. Appreciate him taking the time to do that. Really fun conversation there with him, talking all things NFL draft. And that interview went about 26 minutes. So real quickly on the USFL first weekend, this weekend, one thing I was getting on my nerves is the inaugural weekend of the USFL. No, yes and no. This is a different USFL than the one from the 80s. That ran from 83 to 85. Players different. I mean, this is a true minor league. I mean, I enjoyed it. I loved every minute of it, just watching the football over the weekend. I didn't watch a lot of the Sunday games in depth because it was Easter, hanging out with family. The Saturday night game I watched a lot. Birmingham and New Jersey, really good game there between those two. Good crowd with Birmingham. The biggest thing for me, and I was worried about this going into that league, was you're playing all your games in Birmingham. All 8 teams are located in Birmingham this year, which I know a lot of people are fussing about that. Don't understand it. They're going to play in their cities next season if there's a season 2. Let's just hope they can get through this season. But Saturday night, the Birmingham crowd was awesome because their hometown team is there. Now on Sunday, and I think it's 3 factors. One, the weather. The first game was delayed between Michigan and Houston. Number 2, it's on Easter. And number 3, the Stallions aren't playing. And the attendance was bad. It looked bad. I mean, there wasn't a lot of people there. at the games. Now, there was a good amount of people, like I said, on Saturday night, and that's what worried me. I like the drone camera angles. A lot of people were talking about that over the weekend. I enjoyed it, something different. Now, the players and coaches being mic'd up, we can hear them. I don't mind that, but they need to do something with the game broadcasters. Don't talk over that. They need to come up with a better formula of when to do that, when to not to do that. But that was cool. I like that, but just kind of too many voices at one time, kind of throwing you off, because I'll be listening to Kurt Menefee and Joel Klatt will be trying to break something down, but at the same time, I'm hearing the coaches or the quarterbacks or something going on with them. Quarterback play wasn't great, which is sometimes the case with these leagues. Offensive line play, we'll see how that works out throughout the season. But look, these teams only had 3 weeks of practice, and it was really well played football, though. I mean, quarterbacks weren't overly great, but it was not bad football. But my big concern is just when Birmingham, the Stallions are not playing, the crowds are not going to be as good at Birmingham. And then another thing I'll throw out. So since the first game got a weather delay, and they're playing at UAB Stadium, they're not playing at Legion Field, or they weren't on Sunday. But the first game gets delayed about, I think, an hour. So then that pushes back all the other games. I think a better planning, and hindsight 2020, it's very easy now to look back, look at these things. This is what you should have done. And I'm sure they're doing it. Maybe you should have had the 3:00 game set to play at Legion, and then you go back to UAB Stadium for the 7:00 game. Which the 7:00 game did not get played. It's going to get played on Monday night, just because of the weather situation, everything going up around Birmingham. But that's just kind of how I feel about that, because now you're looking at a weather situation can impact all these things. I mean, an 8:00 kickoff Central Time is what it would have been because of delays, and they pushed it like back to Monday, which for that, get some Monday Night Football, get some football to watch on Monday night. But that's just, I think you should have put the middle game at Legion Field on Sunday and then played the other 2 games there. You would have been fine. But we'll see. Well, I'm sure they'll make some adjustments as the season goes on. I hope the attendance gets better for the non-Stallion games. That'll be very important. That'll be key. It's just, and they're all about TV product, and it's saving money. No travel costs, all the players. So they're putting themselves in a good situation, a good position to make it to a year 2 when these teams are in their cities. But, and I get some of the criticisms with that, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to week 2, and I'll go more in depth maybe on next week's podcast when we go through week 2. Just for one, I will watch all the games, in depth in week 2. It's just Easter weekend. I'm going to go back and rewatch these games throughout the week. But with Easter weekend, family, and other priorities took place on Sunday because of Easter. Like I said, I was watching on my phone here and there on TV as I'm spending time with family members, but I wasn't in depth watching the Sunday game, so I apologize on that. Anyways, that's going to do it for this edition, the return edition of the Cover 2 NFL podcast. Thank you for checking it out. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts, or we'll read it on a future edition of the show. And check out Talking SEC. This conversation is actually going to be on Talking SEC too, but go check out Talking SEC. It is back as well. All things SEC football with a spin on it, but go check that out as well. Everybody has a great week. I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.